Rick here, and today I'm going to share my 3 top tips for storing your Christmas lights, including the #1 thing that you should be doing before you take your Christmas lights down. So normally I synchronize my Christmas lights to music every year, and I put out a lot of lights, about 100,000 lights. And honestly, well, you don't get to this point overnight. It starts as a hobby and then it turns into an addiction. And then one day you wake up and, well, your neighbors I love that squirrel, by the way. Your neighbors refer to you as, well, Clark Griswold. And you just sort of own it. But I've learned some tips and tricks over the years from putting out so many lights. So here's my top 3 tips, and we're going to go in reverse orders. Tip number 3. When you take your lights down and you go to store them, wrap them into balls. So you're going to find yourself wanting to just grab your lights, toss them up, put them into your storage bins, and you say, oh, I'll deal with those next year. But if you take a little bit of time this year and you store them properly, it's going to make your job so much easier when you go to put them back out next year. So I always roll mine into balls, and I always make sure that the end, the cord that is hanging freely, is going to be the male end. And you can tell which the male end is and the female end because, well, the male end has prongs and the female end is going to have the receptacle. So I always make sure that when I roll it into the ball, I start rolling at the female end and I roll it up with the male end hanging down. Now this is going to make it super easy for storage because you're going to save a ton of space. Now they do make storage reels that you can put these on, but I think this doesn't cost you any money, and 2, it actually works a lot better because next year when you put your lights out, you always want your male end to be down at the bottom of whatever shrub, tree, bush, part of your display that you're putting your lights on, because you need to be able to easily connect it to your power supply. And so if you start here, then you would just start at the bottom of your tree or shrub, and then it's just easy to unwind it around the tree or whatever you're putting your lights on. So that's my 3rd tip. Tip number 3 would be to store your lights in balls. You'll also see here that on this one, I do have a piece of tape. And on this tape, this is just painter's tape, and I have the words or the letters CW. CW stands for cool white. And so I've labeled these as cool white strands. You can see from the number of lights, I use a lot of different colors. So it's important for me to make sure that I know what color the lights are in case they get mixed up. I don't want different colored lights if I were using these to wrap a tree. The mistake that people make with these is they want to wrap them like you might wrap an extension cord. So I see people wrapping like this, and then they'll get them wrapped up like that, and they'll put them in their storage container, and then guess what that's going to do the next year? They are going to get all jumbled together, and you're going to have a big mess on your hands. So take a moment, wrap your lights into balls. That'll save you tons of time next year. So tip number 2, now that you've got your lights taken down and you've wound them up into balls, you got to get ready to store them. So what I do is I take my lights, and when I take my lights off the ground or off of my display, first thing that I do is I stretch them out across my driveway and I let them set in the sun for at least 1 or 2 days. That's because water, especially here in Houston, we tend to get really wet Decembers, and my lights, especially my ground lights, those lights get water in them. Well, water is the enemy of any Christmas display, and it will also kill your lights in terms of the longevity. It will shorten the lifespan of those lights if there's water in those bulbs or in your Christmas lights when you go to store it. So I will stretch my lights out, and I will give my lights plenty of time to dry before I wind them up, and then I put them into the tubs. But then the second thing that I do when I store them in the tubs is that I add silica gel packets. That's right, those little packets that you get in clothes when you buy them that'll help keep your clothes fresh. It also comes in some food, some boxes, things like that. If you shop from Amazon, you'll get a lot of those. So I will collect those silica gel packets and I will keep them over the course of the year. And then when I go to store my Christmas lights, I will take those and I will add them into the storage totes. So yeah, so I use those silica gel packets, and what those silica gel packets are designed to do is, well, they draw moisture out. They keep the contents dry. And so take several of those silica gel packets and just drop them into your storage totes with your Christmas lights, and they'll help get any remaining moisture that might be trapped in those lights. It'll help pull that out and it'll expand the longevity of your lights. Don't worry if you haven't saved any silica gel packets over the course of the last year. I've got a link in the video description down below where you can get some of the larger silica gel packets. They're really cheap on Amazon, and you can just toss those into your storage lights. So that's tip number 2. Extend the longevity of your Christmas lights by giving them some time to dry and then using silica gel packets. And that, my friends, brings me to my number 1 tip that is going to save you a ton of time and energy when you put your lights out again next year, and that is to use a schematic. Now, don't let the word schematic scare you. It's just a fancy way of saying that you've got some sort of drawing that shows where your stuff goes within your Christmas light display. And as your displays grow year over year, because remember, Christmas lights is an addiction, we all add more. It just makes it so much easier and simpler to be able to put your Christmas lights out if you've got a schematic. I'm going to show you specifically what that looks like. And if you would like the template that I'm going to show you for schematics, just leave a comment in the comment section down below. I'm happy to send this to you free of charge. You can use it to create your own templates for your very own displays. And so this is a schematic that I created for a client's house where I did their Christmas lights. And my goal there was to help make it easier for them to be able to do their own Christmas lights. So I would create a design, I would install a design one year, and then create a schematic that they can then use in future years if they want to do the lights themselves, or they can call me and hire me to come do the lights also. I sort of realized, why am I not doing this for my own Christmas light display? Why am I rummaging through tubs and totes of Christmas lights and cords trying to find what cord goes where which light lines up? Because what happens is we think we're going to remember, like really, right? We think we're going to remember where our cords go, where we have things in the display, and it just simply doesn't work that way. I mean, I can't even remember what I had for lunch a few days ago. And to think that a year from now I'm going to remember where my power cord ran from my Christmas light display. So when you create a schematic, it takes all of that guesswork out for you for the next year. So I make sure I label all of my cords, and I do that with just painter's tape. Painter's tape is the easiest way, the blue tape that you can get in the store. And I use a permanent marker, and I simply write A or B. And then on the schematic, you can then see, well, when I get my wire out the next year, well, I know A, which is going to be clearly marked, and where B goes, and it's just easy. You just put them out right into their place. I also do this for roof lights, so I will mark AB, AB. I will also mark the location of the timers, and so let me switch my video location. You'll see here that I have the timer up in the soffit, the Christmas light timer up in a soffit here, and so I mark the location of that and I just write it in the schematic. Where my power cord runs, where the lights attach, where they connect into, and it just makes it so much easier the next year when you go to put your lights in. So you can see again, A, B, the front gutter runs from the taped end of the power end to the male plug B, down the gutter, under the porch railing, down the gutter, under the porch railing, into a timer that lives here. And then I'll do a wider picture like this that shows the location, and then I will do the zoomed in picture here that will show where the power cords run. And that way the homeowner then can very simply and easily put these lights back out themselves without having to do a lot of guesswork. I have the midsection, or what I call the M yard. And so on my lights here, on this strand of lights, I would put M yard, and then I would have A or B, or A and B on the cord. And so it corresponds with the schematic. So again, we have L yard, front gutter, M yard. And so those are the headings that I'm going to use on the tape when I store these specific lights. So then the next year I just pull them out. I see, okay, here's my garage window lights. Where does this cord run? And then I can see specifically where I connect my power cords and everything else. Let me just add, if you guys are not creating your own custom length extension cords, you're wasting a lot of time and money, and it just make your own custom cords. I've got a YouTube video on how you can easily and cheaply make your own custom cords for your holiday list displays. Feel free to check that video out. It's going to pop up on one of either shoulder of mine. Video is going to pop up. So again, here you can see how I do this for every single prop in the display. So this is the wreath, and I even mark where the wreath comes down and it attaches into the lights that I have running along the small roof line here. So you can see the zoomed out larger version, and then the zoomed in version showing where those lights specifically connect. So I don't just mark the location of where my lights start and end. I also mark the location of my cords so that I know by looking at the schematic where my cords run within the display. And then I label those cords also, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I'll have that marked on my schematics. Sometimes I actually draw the cord in with a Sharpie onto my schematic itself. So if I had the schematic, I might take, if this were a picture of my house, I might take a magic marker and I would draw exactly where that cord runs. But I even mark the location of my adapters. And so when I'm connecting multiple components into one specific spot for power in my display, I'll use these 3-prong connectors that allow me to connect in. And so when I do this, I'll take pictures of it and I'll mark the locations of these in my schematic also. Now, your schematic may not need to be 15 pages long. You may only have a few props in your display, but again, it'll help you if you label those props. And then if you have, especially if you're using custom cordage, and then it gives you that motivation to grow your display, because as you realize, well, hey, I can save a lot of time and energy by doing this. Well, I can add more stuff, and well, who doesn't want more Christmas lights as part of their display? I hope you guys have appreciated the tips that I've shared with you today. Remember, just 3 easy things that you can do that will both expand the lifespan or the longevity of your Christmas lights, and 2, just make it a whole lot easier when you put your Christmas lights out again next year.